If you enjoyed The Green Knight but wished there was more action and less ambiguity, then boy do I have the movie for you. Going in, I thought this was going to be your average revenge film, and though I wasn't necessarily wrong, there is so much more packed into this movie. Things like non-linear reveals and political themes are shown masterfully, so despite the simple story at its foundation, the movie is anything but. Welcome to Sandwich Reviews. I'm the Talking Sentient Sandwich, and I really enjoyed watching Monkey Man. There's a lot of really good visual storytelling. It doesn't take much brainpower to get clued into a lot of these, but I appreciate that you have to be paying some kind of attention as to what is on screen, and I really appreciate the context that gives to the story. And the cinematography wasn't just good overall, it's the choice of camera shots and edits which were always used to put the viewer in the headspace of the main character. Even if a lot of those decisions were born from budgetary issues, the creativity was overflowing. Plenty of influences can be seen here and there, with one of them even being referenced in the movie, but for me, that only cemented Dev Patel's directorial debut as an all-timer. He has played the scrawny genius for so long, it was really captivating to see Patel nail everything in this role. The dialogue, the subtle looks and gestures, and especially the action, all of which is stellar. Sure, there may be one or two many punches where frames are cut out, but that didn't ruin the fight scenes or anything. I think there were just so many of those that I started to notice, which the point of that trick is that the audience doesn't notice. Despite having more action than The Green Knight, like I mentioned before, it does come pretty sparse, but once the third act begins, there are some genuinely great fights and oneers. And before getting to that breakneck finale, the movie keeps you entertained, always building up to something, and that's all in the editing. Keeping everything snappy and fluid, the movie gives you every bit of information you need while keeping the runtime lean and mean. As I've never taken a step inside India, I'm not really the right person to discuss this movie's accuracy to its culture, but accurate or not, the setting felt genuine. It reminded me of the way the criminals in Breaking Bad were written. They may look larger than life and intimidating, but they're just people trying to live their lives. The crime they do is only a part of that life, and they only do that in the first place because they are a victim of circumstances, pushed down into poverty by the ruling upper class and forced to stay there unless they turn to criminal means. And you can really feel that depiction in the film. So if you're into somewhat gruesome revenge movies with incredible action, check out Monkey Man. I won't get into the politics behind the movie, mainly because I'm not nearly educated enough on Indian affairs, but I do want to talk some spoilers, so spoiler warning from here on out. The movie starts by telling the legend of Hanuman, a Hindu myth that I had no idea about, and I loved every minute of this. So as the movie went on, and the whole film was just clearly a retelling of that myth, I loved the movie even more. It gets surreal at times, but for the most part, it is purely set in the real world. Similar to movies such as The Green Knight, like I mentioned before, and The Northman, it could be interpreted that all of the supernatural stuff that happened really did happen. I mean, I'm confident that was all some drug-fueled dream, but that doesn't take away from how cool these sequences are, and The Monkey Man is no exception to that, featuring some great effects. One thing I loved about the movie was how the main character was just in over his head the whole time, and you don't even realize that until close to halfway through. Setting up the protagonist's ingenious infiltration of the villain's hideout, his first attempt goes awry very quickly, and I appreciated how bafflingly bad his plan was, despite how smart parts of it were. And after that failure is when the story really gets going. Although there are plenty of those context clues for the narrative that I mentioned earlier, we don't see the tragedy that happens to the main character until more than halfway through the movie. That's when the context truly sets in, and that's when the revenge really begins. And that whole training arc before the action-packed finale was so much fun, playing with drum beats and rhythm in a way I had never seen before. While John Wick is mentioned in the movie, the biggest influence on the movie that I saw was the raid, with the ending going full-on Raid 2. The character goes through countless no-named henchmen one room after another, and I couldn't help but sit on the edge of my seat with my jaw wide open. But before I conclude this video, I have to mention one thing, because I feel like I have to talk about a bias that definitely influenced my review. Because I feel like a lot of my love for this movie was born from spite. Some studio head figured they'd make more money by not releasing the movie at all, and that was after Netflix tried to secretly shop it around. But thankfully, Jordan Peele said no, and fast-tracked a theatrical release. And for that reason alone, I was willing to spend $10 to watch it. But I'm confident that if I put all of that aside, I would have still loved this movie, because it rocks. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe for weekly videos and reviews, and enjoy a delicious sandwich.